What's up guys, welcome back to another video. It's Aleksi here. So in this video I want to talk about God and purely like God and how God removes things from your hands that you don't actually need. A lot of us think that we like need certain things, certain people, objects. You might have an addiction to something and you're holding on to something very greatly, but God tries to like remove these things from your hands as much as possible that are like you don't actually need. Especially if it's like a door that needs to be closed, maybe it's like people, objects, some kind of habits, etc. Like all these things God closes doors on because it's so important for you to let go of old things and bad things basically that are bad for you. It could be as simple as like, God removing an addiction. Maybe you like something too much and it's holding you back, Maybe there's a certain person that's holding you back in your life that you're holding on to, that's not good for you, but you're pretending it's good for you. Maybe it's literally just, some kind of object you hold on to greatly that you don't actually need. Maybe it's like a dream car or something, whatever it is. Like God could like remove these things from your hands. I don't know what it is for you, but usually that's been the case for me. Is like usually God removes things that I don't need necessarily from my life. I know this myself, like I didn't really need this, or like God tells me to remove certain things from my life myself. He asks me to change and be open to change, like removing and throwing away old stuff, for example, from your house. And that's like a part of letting go of things and abandoning things that are not needed, And so that way, when you remove the old, new can also come in that's better. But yeah, one-on-one's in the description if you'd like to talk to me on private, and donation in the description, thank you, helps run this channel. But anyway, just let everything with God to an extent comes to the fact that you need to submit and surrender to God. Everything kind of is, you're a created being of God and God is the creator. And that's what everything kind of stems to at the end of the day. That's the main thing people kind of struggle with, and we struggle with is we are very willful naturally and kind of corrupted, obviously. And we always want to control things, and that's how that's how Satan basically is. Like, Satan wants to control and clench his hands on everything and, control the world and people, over God. And that's how Satan is. And we have that same problem, is that we're very willful. We want to do things our own way and be our own kings and worry about our own future prospects and otherwise, things like these, right? This is where that like wanting to clench onto things and hold on to things comes from. It's our own like unsubmission to God and resistance to God and his orchestrations for us. That's where it all stems from. And that's the most important thing to kind of break. And that's the hardest thing to break, and it's something that happens over time. You don't suddenly be able to submit to God. You probably have to practice it because it's very hard to let go of your old ways we have, like being willful in everything and planning everything for ourselves and, all this stuff. But yeah, I hope this video can kind of help you gain enlightenment on this aspect of life. I think it's pretty important to understand where this comes from, this clenching and hand holding to everything. If there's a will, there's a way. God bless. Amen. See you in the next one.